Record. Hello, and welcome to Live and Let's Discuss, a 007 podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy, at Stupid Chainsaw Productions, and with me today is Noah, aka Quality Autism on YouTube.
Hello.
So, this was supposed to be called For Your Ears Only. This is what we marketed it as. I can say market. This is what we hyped it up as. But that title has been taken.
Which is a shame.
It's been a podcast for 4 years and neither of us knew. It's weird. So there's a lot of Bond podcasts, but not a lot of Bond podcasts that talk about the books and the movies.
Yeah. Because most people have only seen the movies, I would say.
So our goal initially with this podcast is to go through the 25 Bond films. Well, the initial canon of films and then the Daniel Craig reboot. And then we'll go off and into the weird territory of the weird Casino Royale movies, the remake of Thunderball called Never Say Never Again, as well as eventually talk about the John Gardner and Raymond Benson books.
Yeah.
The format for the moment is we're going to compare and contrast the Ian Fleming novel to the movie. So we're going to start with Dr. No, because even though it's the sixth Fleming book, it's the first official Bond movie. You know, he's called James Bond, not Jimmy Bond, so I think this is a good place to start.
You know what's also great? This is still pretty much a adaptation, because later on in this podcast, I'm sure we're going to talk about certain movies and how they differ from the books.
Yeah, like The Spy Who Loved Me, for instance. We'll have to talk about the movie novelization, as well as the movie and the novel.
Oh, that's going to be great.
That's going to be convoluted, but we have like a year before that happens.
Yeah, I'm sure you're also looking forward to Moonraker, your favorite.
I am looking to Moonraker because I love that novel. But, yeah, Dr. No is an interesting Bond book as well as an interesting Bond movie. Because they're very different, but at the same time, the film's a great adaptation of the book. But has to obviously change things because it's the first movie.
Yes, and I would say, in terms of an adaptation, like, this is pretty direct. Like, they really are taking the story and everything. The only thing they did was adding certain characters in it.
Yes.
Changing a little bit of the stuff when he's on Jamaica.
I would argue there's a little more in tone that's different. But, yeah, well, what is the plot of Dr. No?
Yeah, so the plot of Dr. No, James Bond is sent to Jamaica because one of their people there, Strangways, has disappeared. And Bond has to play detective, find out what's happening. And he discovers that there is an island called Crab Key, and it's owned by a mysterious person named Dr. No. And eventually, his way is going to lead him to Crab Key, and he has to face off against Dr. No and his evil plan.
Very good. Yeah, so that's the general gist of both the book and the movie. And do we want to get into spoilers on this podcast?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
I mean,
50 years, 60 years, almost old.
Yeah, and even though I'm not a fan of spoiling things, these are discussion podcasts. They're not necessarily reviews. This is more of an we're analyzing this. So the big differences between this book, well, I'll start with tones different in certain ways, and the way that Jamaica is as a country. in the book, it's still it's a British colony essentially still, because it was written like nearly 10 years before the movie came out. And in the movie, it's been, I think it was a year after Jamaica got its independence from Great Britain. So very different settings in that regard. In the book, Dr. No, Bond is sent there. It's sort of like he's getting back into the swing of things after what happened to him in From Russia with Love.
Which is carried over into the movie in an interesting way.
Yeah, to a degree. I mean, he wasn't poisoned, which is what happens at the end of From Russia with Love. But we'll talk about that more next episode when we review From Russia with Love.
Right. What our listeners have to understand, in the books, it's From Russia with Love is book number 4. No, 5. Book number 5. And Dr. No is book number 6. They are pretty much sequels, because From Russia with Love ends on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
And this book starts when Bond is introduced, going into M's office, and they talk about his failure on his last mission, which is also in the film. But it's a different mission in the film, because obviously From Russia with Love is the second movie.
Yes. Which brings up another big change I noticed on this watch long. I just watched this for the most part today, Noah, which was interesting. There's so many things I forgot about this movie. Number one, this is when Bond gets in the book, he gets the Walther PPK, which he barely even uses. I don't think he even fires it in the book of Dr. No.
No, he doesn't. I just read it again. I think, what was the other weapon?
He got a Smith & Wesson revolver.
Smith & Wesson.
Which is what Quarles... It's the same gun that Quarles carrying around in the movie.
Yeah.
But in the movie, he's carrying a Walther PP, which I think is the only time Bond's ever used that gun. Walther PP is... I'm explaining a German gun to my friend that's German. That's kind of funny. Walther PP has a longer slide, and they came out before the PPK. Personally, I've never shot a PP, but I hate the aesthetic of it. It looks goofy to me. The PPK is a more elegant firearm that fits Bond better. With that being said, they both look better than the P99 that we start seeing in the Pierce Brosnan movies.
Oh yeah.
The P99 is very much a 90s firearm. But,
So when we are talking about the scene right now, can we talk about one thing I noticed on my recent rewatch?
Yes.
The guy who gives Bond his new gun is actually Q.
Yes.
Which I didn't really realize until I watched it this time, and M is calling him Major Boothroyd.
Yes, he's not credited to Q.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
Yeah, I mean, in the books, there is no Q character. There is a Q branch, and Major Boothroyd is the guy who gives Bond a gun. But they kind of fused like these two characters together, like they created Q for the films.
Yeah, they make fun of his Beretta 25.
Oh yeah.
Which, granted, is a very tiny, tiny gun.
What does he say? Perfect for a woman's
handbag.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's actually... they don't really make Beretta 25s anymore. They don't really make the 25 caliber anymore. To be fair, it's kind of outdated. But yeah, like a tip-up pistol like that, they're designed for elderly women who can't pull the slide back on a gun. It's literally, that's their only purpose in a world of Glocks. That's their one purpose.
That's great. There's also a fun backstory about this gun change in the books, because a fan wrote Fleming and said, "Yeah, that's not a gun a secret agent would use. Why don't you have him use like a Walter PPK or stuff?" And of course, this guy was named Boothroyd.
That's funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then he wrote this character in and called him Major Boothroyd, and he gives Bond a gun. It's a pretty fun Easter egg.
Yeah. In the book, Bond, it doesn't really come off in the movie. Bond kind of accepts after trying to sneak out his Beretta, getting told to leave it on the table. In the book, he really resents M for the whole, basically the whole book, for doing this and changing out his guns, and then
and then sending him on this mission. Bond is really pissed about it.
Yeah,
because he realized that M is kind of punishing him.
Yeah,
with this easy assignment.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that more once again with From Russia with Love, because there's reasoning behind that. And so I really love Jamaica in this film.
Oh yeah.
But before we get there, I wanted to talk about his Bond's intro in this movie is so cool, with him gambling.
Yeah, it's straight out of Casino Royale.
Yes, it is. And it made me wish that they had the rights to a Casino Royale movie with Sean Connery.
Yeah, it would have been great.
Yeah, but at the time they couldn't, and we'll talk about this more. I keep alluding to things, but we'll talk about this a bit more. We can get into it a little bit now. They tried to make a Casino Royale movie, and it was like a teleplay in the 50s. It was awful, but Ian Fleming, well, they lost the rights to, they were owned by a certain, I can't remember what company owned the rights.
I think CBS owned them first.
Yeah,
for
but
the television program, and then they sold it to a guy named like Feldman. And then this guy made a Casino Royale spoof in the 60s, once the Sean Connery Bond movies became a big thing.
Which is horrendous, and I loathe the day that we have to talk about that. But yeah, it's they decided like, oh, we're gonna do Dr. No as the first film, and it's a solid first film, because they had to change it.
Problems with that.
Yeah. Bond goes to Jamaica, and they play the Bond theme over and over and over again.
I actually kind of love it.
It's the only good piece of music in that whole film. If I have one complaint about this film, I have two complaints. One complaint is the aspect ratio is just awful. It's not quite 16:9, and when you're watching on a widescreen TV, you get weird black bars on the sides of the screen. It's just some films. It was the film stock they used in the early 60s, because I think From Russia with Love will have this same problem. Because I know they had to reshoot the gun barrel scene in the beginning, which, by the way, is not Sean Connery in the gun barrel. It's a stunt man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's weird. But the other thing is the score is pretty much awful.
I kind of disagree. Because I think there are some good pieces of this Jamaican style sound. Like when they are in this club, this Jamaica jump up, this band is performing.
The Calypso? I hate
I like
Calypso.
this kind of stuff.
I truly hate Calypso music.
Oh.
I
think it's good for the atmosphere. We are
Jamaica, it makes
music. That's all good.
Yeah, it's just the main song in the beginning is just repetitive.
Three Blind Mice.
Yeah,
this is actually kind of amazing because, okay, what has become a staple of the Bond movies is the Bond theme in the opening, credit sequence, and this time in the very first movie, it's just the Bond theme, which is, appropriate. It's cool.
Yeah,
the series started with that, and then it goes into the, the Calypso thing, and then it goes into Three Blind Mice and then directly in the film. And I like it.
I like that it sets up, because that's from the book, where it's three assassins disguising themselves as three blind men.
Yes, and I like the way that it goes directly into
Yeah,
it.
no, visually I like it. But the music, it's just I could do. It's too early 60s for its own good, and we have to. I'm also comparing it to the later Connery films, where the music is just, even from when we transfer into From Russia with Love, it's so much better. It's such a much better score. And don't even get me started with
because the composer for this one was Monty Norman.
Yes.
Yeah, and then John Barry takes over for decades.
Oh yeah, with the occasional he takes a break.
Oh yeah, that's true. But I would say, okay, so to the listeners, you understand, we are not saying Monty Norman did a bad job. I mean, after all, this guy created the Bond theme.
No, it's just it's in comparison, it's not Bond enough, and there's too much calypso.
It sets the tone, it helps the atmosphere, but we would wish more for a Barry-like score, because that's what we really like.
I mean, I still wish for that in the modern Bond films.
Yeah. I'm sure we're gonna get to it eventually.
Yeah, in 2 years. But anyway, so Bond in Jamaica's interesting. We get in the movie, which is different from the book, we're introduced to Quarrel, who's one of my favorite Bond sidekicks, because especially in the books, because we get Quarrel twice, because he's introduced in the novel of Live and Let Die, and we meet him again in Dr. No, which is a few books after.
Yes, and it's interesting with the movies, because obviously Dr. No comes first and is Sean Connery's first outing as Bond. Mm-hmm. And later they would make Live and Let Die, the first movie of Roger Moore, and of course they would bring in Quarrel Jr.
Yes, instead of Quarrel.
Which I think was a nice nod to, like, yeah, Live and Let Die and Dr. No were kind of sequels, you could say. Like, they shared some similarities. Mm-hmm. And I like that it's carried over for the movies in some capacity.
Yes, I do appreciate that. Also, I like that Felix Leiter, even when he's introduced, he introduces Quarrel to Bond, like he does in Live and Let Die, to a certain extent. The novel of Live and Let Die. Yeah.
Oh, and we should say Felix Leiter, speaking of him, he's not in the book. They wrote him in for the film only.
Yes. Yeah. Because they need to establish Felix Leiter, and because he'll be a character going forward in the Bond series.
He will be a character going forward, but he won't be the same actor going forward.
No,
a shame.
Out of all of because everyone talks about how there's so many Bonds, there's been more M's, but Felix Leiter has only stayed the same. I think until it's the Daniel Craig movies, it's been the same actor.
Yes, and the one guy, he was in Live and Let Die, and then again in License to Kill, and that's it.
Oh gosh, I forgot he was in Live and Let Die.
And every other time, Felix Leiter is played one actor each movie, only once. It's amazing.
Yeah, and some of them are pretty bad. Some of them are really good. This one's okay.
Oh, you say okay, I say great.
I don't know. There's better. I you know what? I'm being a little hard. I'll go. He's pretty good.
Yeah, because I would say he comes across on Bond's level. Like, Jack Lord is the actor, and man, I watched this movie and he is so cool. And just, I absolutely get the feeling like, yeah, this guy could absolutely be like best buddy, best friend with Bond.
You're winning me over here.
Yeah, I mean, take, for example, the scene in the bar on Jamaica when they are talking and Quarrel and this photography girl come in. And Bond comes across kind of like, who sent you? What are you doing? Kind of like, you know...
irritated. Yeah. He
But
loses
Phoenix in
composure.
the scene is really like laid back and cool, and I just love him in this role, and I wish he would have stuck around longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because immediately changed within the next film.
Well, in Goldfinger.
In Goldfinger, yeah. Sorry, I'm combining From Russia with Love and Goldfinger a little bit here. Both are really solid films, and I can't wait to get to them. But yeah, we get to see some different things. I want to skip around a little bit because I don't want to just full on go scene for scene the movie here.
All right.
The bug scenes. Can we talk about the bug scenes?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, in the book, a centipede crawls on Bond, and it's the most you think it's the most horrifying thing ever, because it goes on and on and on and on, and you're just like, oh god, please leave him alone. Until we get to, I'm skipping to Dr. No's pain device briefly.
Oh, I know what you're gonna say.
And Bond's stuck in this tunnel thing, and then he has to go through a bunch of tarantulas.
Oh.
I listened to these books on audiobook while I drive, and I was literally gagging this whole time. But they combine them because, he ends up killing all these tarantulas and leaving them in a gross pile.
Yeah. Doesn't he kill them with fire, I think?
No, he kills them by stabbing them with a stick.
Oh, right. Right. Oh, disgusting.
Which is heinous. Well, they're obviously not going to film that. Animal rights activists after the birds would never allow something like that. So they combine them together, and he has a spider crawl up him. And this is the only, heinous thing. When we get to the Bond girl, Honey Child Rider, she talks about how a man assaulted her, and that she killed him in both the book and the movie by putting a black widow on him, and it bit him, and he took a week to die. Which, by the way, have you ever been bitten by... You probably don't even have black widows where you live, Noah.
Nope.
Because it's way too cold for them. No, we get them here. I've had friends who are bitten, and it's literally you get there's anti-venom now, but you have to get the shot within an hour. Otherwise, it's you won't die from it necessarily unless it literally bites you on the chest or something. If you get bit on the arm, it's a week of just vomiting and migraines and stuff, and having problem with light and stuff. It happened to my mom when she was younger. So I avoid them.
Ooh.
Like the plague. We get them here where I live, and they're nasty. They're one of those poisonous spiders we get here. And they're everywhere, through most of the United States, you find black widows.
Oof.
They're gross. They're freaky.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so Dr. No is one of my favorite Bond villains.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's so weird. He's almost honestly, he has no emotion, really. He's like a robot.
Yeah, he's really cold.
He has no hands, first of all.
Well, he has mechanical hands.
He has mechanical hands, but he had his hands cut off. Which
he explains in the movie, because he was part of the, Chinese underground, which is the same as in the book. A difference is they don't mention his first name is Julius. So he's just Dr. No. And Doctor isn't even his real title. He just calls himself a doctor, but he isn't one.
Yes. He also, in the book, has, it could be in the movie too, but it never comes up. His heart is on the right side of his body.
Right, because in the book it's explained. So these gangsters, they cut off his hands and then shot him in the chest. And the only reason he survived is because like you said, his heart is on the other side of the chest.
So he made himself into basically he stole their money, he bought an island, and he has like this device to change the trajectory of rockets.
Yep.
Which in the movie is for Spectre. Because they were building Spectre up as the big baddie. But in the book, it's for Shmesh.
Not necessarily, but it's definitely for the Russians. That's how much.
Well, Bond thinks it's potentially for Shmesh.
Yeah.
Bond has an obsession with Shmesh.
Oh, yeah. But Dr. No said, he's doing this for the Russians, and maybe he will also do something for the Chinese if they pay him well enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So I get where they got the Spectre idea, because this is not directly like a Russian thing, like in some previous books.
Yeah, and the movie kind of stayed away from demonizing the Russians like Fleming did in the book, and that's a theme throughout pretty much all the Bond movies.
Yeah,
they didn't want to do that. I'm not sure. I'm not entirely sure why they.
So I would have two ideas about it. One, they just didn't want the films to become too political. And I mean, it's nice to have some optimism and stuff in films.
They do later. For Your Eyes Only and the Margaret Thatcher parody.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe they... yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the other idea was, okay, we're gonna make these movies, but if the Cold War is over at some point, we also want these films to make money in Russia, and maybe this wouldn't work if we insult them.
Yeah, fair enough. I get that. But yeah, Fleming had no holds barred. Just Russia villain. Literally has an organization that's death to spies.
Yeah, which is only mentioned in the films twice, I think. In From Russia with Love and then in Living Daylights.
Oh. Yeah, a little bit. It's not a big thing.
Yeah, it's just small mentions of it.
Yeah.
Which I think it may have to do with the fact that Smersh was a real organization.
Oh, I've not looked into that.
Yes, I have looked into it, and I think Fleming even said it in a foreword for From Russia with Love, his book. Smersh was a real organization, but the only thing I could find about them is, Smersh existed during the Cold War, and there's a fictionalized version of it in Fleming's books, but that's it. No other mention what they were doing or anything.
Interesting. Can we talk about how the Bond girl in the book is just naked?
Yeah, sure.
For a lot of it?
It's obvious why they didn't do it for the film.
Yeah. We don't need it to be R. Was Dr. No even rated originally, or is the MPAA a thing yet? It's gotten a PG rating now.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was rated, because I looked up a little bit. The director, Terence Young, he said he had to make the script kind of self-parody jokey, because if they play it straight, they would get censored to hell.
It's interesting because I would argue his movie's doesn't feel like a parody. It feels a bit brutal at times, and it comes down to his cinematography. His cinematography, there's a lot of the camera panning around and stuff and establishing shots, long takes, which now pretty much don't exist in Bond films.
Oh, long takes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we know Quantum.
Oh God.
That's like the opposite of Doctor No.
Yeah. Quantum of Solace is how not to make a movie, but
Yeah. But on that note, I watched Doctor No again, like, no, like, I think last year I already rewatched it, and it got up a few spots in my top 10. Because
yeah.
I think the pacing is great.
Yes, there is never a dull moment in Doctor No. And
Yeah, because the story keeps you engaged.
yeah, the Bond's always doing something.
Yes, and it's not always like super awesome action scenes. Like we have these nice moments where Bond is talking with people and doing actual detective work.
Yes.
Like when he's walking around in his apartment and stuff.
Which will disappear.
Sadly.
Yeah. That's something I do appreciate. I also appreciate the just driving.
Yeah.
He does a lot of driving around, which I actually looked up the vehicle because I was not familiar with it. And it's a Sunbeam Alpine. And it is an adorable little car. I want one.
Yeah.
I say that for 90% of the Bond vehicles. Not the Pierce Brosnan vehicles.
Oh, yeah.
And
you don't like those.
Not the later Roger Moore vehicles either. Well, they're garbage. They were actually really garbage cars. I think he drives like just cars in the 70s were kind of terrible. So like give or take. I also like that we don't have a lot of in fact we don't really have a lot of gear like in future Bond films. There's all the gadgets and stuff, and the car does 1,000 things. You don't have it. You just have Bond's wits. And
yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm not sure if I really have any complaints about this movie, other than the score.
Yeah, I would say this is like near perfect what you want out of a James Bond movie.
It's the perfect establishment film.
Yeah.
Although there's certain things that honestly I prefer in the movie than I do in the book.
Oh.
Dr. No's death in the movie is a lot better than in the book.
Yeah, we should also talk about this, but first, since you mentioned it, what I like, what they added, is expanding this whole plan of Dr. No with the rockets, because that's basically already established in the scene with M.
Yes.
That there is something going on. Whereas in the book, it's kind of a last-minute surprise. Oh, that's his plan.
Yeah, because he has a big monologue.
Resolved.
He goes into one of his Fleming evil monologues, which I love.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of does in the movie.
Yeah, it's cut down substantially because in the book it's an exposition dump. And you don't want that in a movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, one of the things in the book is that Crab Key, which is Dr. No's island, is used for, it's like some sort of bird dung.
Yeah, a guano mine.
It's a guano mine, and Dr. No has people use it for fuel, and that's how he makes his money legally. But in the book, Bond hits him with a crane, and he gets buried in feces.
Which is awesome, but wouldn't have worked in the film.
Can you imagine the first Bond film? The villain gets covered in dung.
In shit, yeah.
In feces. It'd be terrible. No, it would...
It would be kind of awesome, but at the same time, it would go like full on like self-parody.
Yeah. In the movie, he dies in I'm not sure what that is, to be fair. Boiling atom water?
Yeah, and they also try to make it ironic because of his hands. He can't climb out.
Yeah, because he can't actually grip.
He can only smash things with his hands, as we have seen in the dinner scene.
Yeah, he crushes...
I don't know how this exactly works. Can we talk about his hands for just a moment?
Yeah.
Okay, in the books, aren't they just like...
They're pincers.
Like steel things,
They're
like these really simple. You can just pick up stuff with them.
Yeah, they're pincers.
And not like whole fingers and stuff.
No. It was clear that they wanted to cut corners and just have him have his gloves on and not use his fingers. It's like, have you ever seen the movie Enter the Dragon?
No.
Okay, it's a Bruce Lee movie. It was his one American film. The villain in that is missing a hand, and he has different, like, appendages he puts on. Like, one's like a knife hand and stuff, but his main one it's just made of, like, jade. He just hits people and breaks their bones. And that's what I think Dr. No's hands were in the movie. And he hits Bond with them, and, like, Bond gets a bruise.
Ooh.
I don't know. The brawl at the end's a little confusing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fine. It's better than a lot of the Roger Moore fights.
Yeah, especially his later fights.
Well, any of them.
Some good ones,
Yeah.
I would say. But what we also should talk about is the set design by Ken Adams. There is one shot in particular when this doctor, not Dr. No, this other guy from Jamaica, visits Dr. No on his island, and he sits down in this giant empty room.
Yes.
It only has like this hole in like the ceiling, and there's one chair, and then on the other side there is this table with the spider on it. Mm-hmm. And it's amazing.
It is a great shot.
And hearing Dr. No speak for the first time in the film, it's like, this is great. Like, this is just awesome stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is one of those few Bond movies where we don't know, if you're going in blind and you've never seen a Bond movie and you're going through it, you don't know what to expect of Dr. No or who he is. There's a big mystery around it. Whereas a lot of times the villain's introduced at the beginning.
Yeah, and this is a slow build-up for the big final, which is pretty good.
It's pretty solid. Can I bring up one tonal thing that's different between the books and the movies? Specifically with Dr. No, it's very apparent. Bond is more remorseful when he kills people in the book. Like, he apologizes to Honey Ryder in the book when he kills people in front of her. In the movie, he does not care one bit.
Yes, because there's this scene in the swamp or whatever where Honey is like, why did you have to kill him? And he's like, because I had to.
Yep.
And he's just, yeah. I like it. I like both.
Yeah, it's just a different characterization. It's yeah. I will say a weak point in this is with the book of Dr. No, we get more of Honey Child Ryder, like what her character's like and stuff. In the movie, she's kind of one-dimensional.
A little bit.
A little bit. We get
but
I
can also see why they, didn't go full on with what the book had in it, because she wants to be a call girl.
Yeah. She wants to be a call girl. She in the book, we find out her parents died when she was young, and she was raised by the nanny, and then the nanny died, and so she was alone with the animals. And yeah.
And I mean, not to say that she was a bad character, I think it hits a good balance where she's like naive and like innocent, but not really like stupid, not like a complete idiot or something.
No, she knows how to survive.
Oh yeah.
And we get that a little bit in the movie with her introduction, which is the iconic scene of her coming out of the ocean. It's like that is like iconic 60s cinema right there. You can look at that and be like, "Oh, this is a James Bond film." Just looking at that. Whereas in the book, she's nude with a belt.
That would have. I mean, to be fair, that would also have been an iconic shot.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have gone over real well in 1963.
Yeah.
Or was it 62?
63?
It's 62. I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, it's 62. Oh.
From Russia with Love was 63. But yeah, we get. I like the movie ends abruptly, but that's to be how they both the book and the movie end abruptly. It's just we get more closure of things in the book, where things are wrapped up.
Yeah, and what's gonna happen with Honey later on?
Yes, which is rare for a Bond novel, and I appreciate Dr. No for doing this, because like we'll talk. Another good example of that is in From Russia with Love. It's a huge cliffhanger, and things aren't resolved, and things are rush resolved at the beginning of Dr. No. A certain character's like, "Oh, she's dead now." It's like, "Oh, okay, I guess that happened." It's not satisfying.
Yeah, and another character from the previous book simply doesn't get mentioned ever again.
Yes. And to be fair, a lot of times Bond girls aren't mentioned ever again. Although I will say in Dr. No, in the book, he thinks back to Solitaire, who's the Bond girl in Live and Let Die, and the climax of that is in near Jamaica.
Yeah. But I mean, in the books, I would say most of them are referenced at least once again. Vesper Lind, for example, from Casino Royale, in a pretty big way later on.
Well, yeah, she's a defining character.
Yeah.
She's like one of the defining characters for Bond's character.
Yeah, one of two women who are actually like this important in the book series.
Yeah. I know who else you're talking about, even though I've not gotten that far in the books yet.
Yeah.
So, any closing thoughts for you, Noah?
Oh, a couple of things I wanted to mention before we close out.
Yes.
First off, we have, Bond's introduction, the great scene in the casino, but we also have the introduction of another character who will return. Sylvia Trench.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, one of the few returning Bond girls.
The first Bond girl to return in a sequel.
Yeah, I forgot.
Up until they all got like dementia and forgot it, and now they claim, "Oh, Madeline Swan in Spectre and then No Time to Die. She's the first Bond girl to return ever."
No. She's the first main Bond girl. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
But no.
Nope. The interesting thing is they wanted Sylvia Trench to stick around for the first 6 movies, and be like a joke thing at the side, where he's like in From Russia with Love, he's hanging out with her at the beginning,
Yes.
and then to leave because, his job needs to be done, and they wanted this as a running joke. But obviously that didn't happen.
That's I'm kind of okay with that. Going off of Bond's opinion of relationships like that, it wouldn't have lasted that long. At least in the book novel Bond, Fleming Bond, it wouldn't have gone so well.
Yep. So 2 other interesting things to mention. Dr. No in this is of course very close to the book. Great performance and everything, but I think in the first draft of the script, Dr. No was supposed to be a monkey.
What?
Yes, that was the original plan, and then they rewrote it. Richard Maybaum, in fact, who would go on to write 13 Bond movies up until License to Kill.
Okay.
Yeah, because he was feeling, oh no, we need this to be closer to Fleming's book. We can't have Dr. No be a goddamn monkey.
That's ridiculous. That is so stupid. That's like something that the current Bond writers would do.
Yeah. I would actually be fine with them doing it. Just embrace stupidity.
No,
like
that's
after Daniel Craig's emo run in the last few films.
Oh, no.
I would actually be curious to see.
That would be
if a Moonraker style movie, how this would work today.
No, what we need is another James Bond Legends video game with Daniel Craig's face in that
in the spacesuit.
In the spacesuit.
He's shot into space to the Moonraker station. Yeah. That would be great.
Oh god. That's too much.
Craig can still return. For movie number 6, it will come out 2035.
God. Oh. What's the last thing? I don't want to think about this anymore.
Okay, last thing. Honey Rider, there is an interesting fun fact about the character. This has more to do with the books than the movie, but it's interesting. So, in the 60s or 70s, I'm not sure, there was a book called James Bond, The Unauthorized Biography.
Yes.
Yes, and in that book it's weird and meta because it claims James Bond was a real person and he had some of these adventures, but then Fleming made up a bunch of other stuff. And in this book, the author claims James Bond married Honey Rider, like the real Bond, as he said.
What?
Yes, it's really weird.
Have you read this?
Nope. I don't know if I want to, because this is basically not a Bond book, because it's not the same character as in Fleming's novels.
But I mean, you'll read John Gardner.
Yeah, true. Which is also weird, because he follows the movie example. He brings Bond in the 80s, and this guy should be 60 years old or something, but he's still mid-30s, early 40s.
So it's basically the movies.
And he just doesn't explain it. He's like, oh yeah, Bond, M, Moneypenny, Felix, they don't age. Who cares? It's just the 80s now.
We just need a Bond book where he's 90.
Yeah. He ages so slowly.
And we introduce James Bond Jr.
Oh.
We'll have to talk about that.
I don't want to.
We got a couple years before that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, some closing thoughts. I thoroughly recommend people watch this movie and read this book.
Absolutely.
Highly.
I would say this movie, like you said, it's a great introduction to the character. It works really great as that, but it's also a good adaptation of the book.
Yes, which a lot of these aren't.
Yeah. And I mean, it don't follows it directly, obviously, like most book-to-movie things do. They change stuff, they add some characters or plot lines or remove little things. But overall, this is close. And this is pretty good. So it works both standalone and if you want a movie adaptation of the book.
Yeah. I'm going to do a closing thing like we do in my podcast, Star Wars Legends, which you've been a part of, Noah.
Yeah.
What Bond book are you currently on?
So I finished a reread of Dr. No in preparation for this, in case I forgot anything important.
I appreciate.
Yeah. Then I read a Anthony Horowitz novel, Forever and a Day, which came out, I think, 2017-ish.
Yes.
And it is a prequel to Casino Royale.
Okay.
It's actually pretty decent.
All right. Yeah, you were telling me about this a little while ago.
Yeah. He also wrote a direct sequel to Goldfinger, which I think I will start next week or so.
Okay.
Because it sounds interesting.
That is interesting. I finished Goldfinger not too long ago. I think it was about almost a month ago. And I'm about to start For Your Eyes Only.
Short story collection.
Yes, the first short story collection, which also all of those stories are collected in a novel in a volume called Quantum of Solace, which was printed because Quantum of Solace came out.
Yes, because they took the title of the short story and nothing from the plot.
What does Quantum of Solace even mean? I can't remember.
Quantum of Solace. So that's the funny thing. It means like, what was it? The minimum of feelings you need in a relationship to work or something like that. But in the short story itself, Fleming has his character say, oh yeah, I came up with this phrase, Quantum of Solace, because it sounds pretentious and interesting. And then they unironically used it for the movie and didn't explain what it means. So it perfectly fits for the director of Quantum.
He's an idiot.
Yeah.
A freaking idiot.
The example you gave one time was pretty great. This guy, if he was in like a art like thing, you know, he sees a banana duct taped to the wall and
he's a modern artist.
Yeah. It's transcendent.
It's transcendent, yeah. But more on that when we have to suffer through Quantum of Solace again.
I'm actually looking forward to it because it's so great to make fun of.
Oh god.
I
hope
Forster and his 4 elements.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Earth, water, wind, and fire. Amazing, amazing.
Captain Planet, he's our hero. He's gonna take pollution down to 0. So awful. Yeah. What a way to end this first episode. With the
making fun of Quantum, as we should.
Yeah. Where would you put Bond on your Dr. No on your? Would it make your top 10 list?
Oh, absolutely, it would.
Would it make your top?
I'm a big fan of the 60s era Bond.
Would it make your top 5?
Ooh, that's tough. That's really tough. Okay, let me go through it quick. In my top 5, what needs to be in it is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, definitely. From Russia with Love. Living Daylights, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
License to Kill, probably.
Okay.
And
yeah.
I want to say Dr. No, but there might be others that I like more. But Dr. No, it's up there. It's definitely up there.
We'll have to do an episode sometime debating our top 10. Because I want to keep mine secret.
Yep. But you know, this movie, rewatching it yesterday, it made me realize how much I miss these type of Bond movies.
Yeah, me too. Everything is big explosions now.
Yeah, and this is just a nice small-scale detective story. It takes you to one foreign location.
Yeah.
And shows it off.
There's no helicopter that flips upside down.
Yeah.
After a building falls down.
There's no secret villain layer that explodes when you fire one shot at it.
From an AK-47. There's There's no... Bond doesn't run across the backs of alligators. There's no laser that comes out of a watch. There's no BMW that turns invisible after that fires 12 gauge rounds has a race through an ice castle that's melting.
It's so nice to have a simple story like this.
Don't worry, we will get to every single one of those things I just said.
Yeah. Some of them are fun.
Some of them
are not.
Yeah. Until next time, guys. Have a good one.
Goodbye.